I'm very happy to have the privilege to speak with Vassar Sullivan, Lexus RCF GTD driver, Jack Hawksworth. Jack, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Nice to be in Detroit.
Well, it is nice to be in Detroit, isn't it? But it's kind of unpredictable to be in Detroit in terms of the weather. It can be 50 degrees and rainy in early June, and it can be well into the 80s and quite sunny. How are you coping with the temperature change?
Shall I hold it, yeah?
Yeah, just I'll hold it for you.
Today's been really hot, so this is on the warm side for us. But you're right. I've been to Detroit before when it's been 50 and raining at this race, and then sometimes it's boiling hot, and hour to hour it can change. So even the forecast for tomorrow, it looks like and there's a 50% chance of a big rainstorm at one point or another. So you just take the weather as it comes. But yeah, you never know here. It always keeps you on your toes, the weather.
Yeah. Now, you're from England. You have dealt with inclement weather in a race car before, I'm sure. So that in of itself is not going to be a challenge. But Detroit is actually a deceptively high-speed street course, and you've also got pavement changes, and you've got interesting camber changes. So there's a lot of different things to think about as you go through a lap here. What's your mental approach to a lap around here?
Yeah, this place is really tricky. There's, like you say, a lot of character to it. It's got quite a lot of faster corners on it, which you don't typically see on a street course. Street course corners tend to be 90 degree usually, slower speed stuff, but turns 1, 2, 13 at this track, really high speed, high commitment stuff. A lot of camber, a lot of crown in the road, no room for error. So certainly for all the drivers, it's really tricky. Throw in some inclement weather, and you've got drains and all kinds of stuff around the circuit. So it really is a real challenge. But as a driver, this is what we love to do. We like a challenge. We like coming to circuits which test us, and nowhere tests you as hard as Detroit does. So I always enjoy coming here.
The other part that's a little bit different, not necessarily than every other race, but this is an endurance racing series, and yet the race itself in all likelihood is going to be shorter than the IndyCar race, only 100 minutes long. So it's very much a sprint race, despite the fact that it's an endurance racing series. So how does that adjust your approach to what you're doing? It's just one pit stop, and in and out laps are super important. How do you take that approach?
It just really puts a lot more importance on qualifying and the pit stop, and then, like you say, in laps and out laps and whatnot. So just changes the importance really of how important a couple of key things are, key elements to the weekend. It's the great thing about IMSA is we have so many races of different lengths. We do have the long 24 hours and 12-hour races, which require a completely different mindset. And then we come to Detroit and we come to Long Beach, where we've got 100 minutes, one pit stop, and you've got to get your start right. You've got to have a good stop, and yeah, there's not a lot of time to recover.
Now let's take a slightly bigger picture. You grew up racing in England. You started in single-seaters. You came here for Star Mazda, Indy Lights, and I think you had some IndyCar starts as well. What has in the transition been like to go from a Formula car to a sports car?
Yeah, I've raced a lot of different cars, I guess, throughout my career, but started off racing go-karts and then raced various open-wheel cars for quite a long time. I think you can, driving's driving at the end of the day, whether it's a GT car, whether it's a stock car or an Indy car. But the biggest thing, I guess, coming from IndyCar world is that when you go from IndyCar to IMSA GT3 cars, they're a little bit heavier, they've got a little bit less tyre, a little bit less downforce. So you tend to have to drive the car a little bit smoother. You can't be as aggressive with the vehicle. With an Indy car, you've got big fat tyres, you can really throw the thing about and it'll still stick. Whereas with a GT car, if you really try to overdrive the car, it's quite easy to have a slide and lose lap time. So just driving to the limit of the vehicle you're in, just getting used to the limit of how fast you can go. If it's there in an Indy car, it's there in a GT3 car, right? So it's just bringing that, dialing it back a little bit.
So you've been here several years now, but how do you compare European racing to racing here in the United States?
What I love about racing in the United States, especially in IMSA and IndyCar's the same as well, like the racing's a lot more raw. The tracks that we go to, there's no track limits, because the track limits are self-policing. You know, if you're on a road course, there's grass and gravel all around you. If you're on a street course, there's walls all around you. Whilst in Europe, they have a big problem at the minute because of all of the tarmac runoffs. And for a driver, I like the fact that, you know, you can't drop a wheel and you can't make mistakes, because that's, for me, that makes it puts more emphasis on the driver and requires more skill of the driver. So I think that part of it I like the fact that we still have safety cars over here and not virtual safety cars, and just more raw, kind of simplified version of racing, which I think is more appealing for the fans, and then a lot more appealing for the drivers as well, because you have more input and it asks more of you, basically.
And the one thing that you look at racing here and GT cars and everything else, what about the variety of GT cars here? I mean, you're racing what is fundamentally a big car with a V8, and then you've got some proper sports cars. I mean, there's just a huge variety even within the GTD category.
Yeah, I mean, the GT3 field's a who's who of motorsport manufacturers, right? You got, you know, Lexus, Ferrari, Audi, Lamborghini, BMW, Acura. The list just goes on and on. And like you say, it's great for the fans to have so many different manufacturers with so many different car philosophies. You know, front engine, mid-engine, rear engine. Just it's really interesting racing, because certain cars will work well on certain parts of a track and vice versa. So I think it's really interesting.
And finally, one question that I ask every British driver, every British person I know: have you tried iced tea?
I've had iced tea. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like something that I love though.
Okay, all right. So still room for improvement for Jack Hawksworth, but thank you so much for your time. Good luck this weekend.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Cheers.